And I hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. The Major 4 qualifiers are back. Some unpredictable games today on paper, but certainly some big results for the rest of this season. Some teams getting absolutely slammed today in not especially pretty fashion. Roster changes may well still be necessary for some of these rosters in the very near future, or maybe they simply will not bother if World Championship qualification is not looking very good. Some teams under the spotlight for sure. Very much into your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always. Wanted to begin here, not here, here, with this tweet from Bats. Now, this weekend, the boys, the pros, are still playing on the old patch, I think. Next weekend, they will move to the new one, which is pretty interesting because in a few days' time, of course, things change. The Jackal gets nerfed. It seems that it's pretty likely that the pros will look to bring back a long barrel. I think that's the plan anyway. Bring back one of those barrel attachments to compensate for the fact that the Jackal got a bit better in the nerf that happened quite a while ago. But they didn't play on that meta or that, update, that patch at the Major. And the Major just ended, right? And now we're here back at the qualifiers. So it's expected that maybe this weekend they'll also just keep on that. And then next weekends, they then swap over. That seems to be the plan. But during this most recent patch update, they've changed the control spawns. I've not really seen any videos of this yet. I know that Trey, after the show today, was saying, yeah, like it's changed a lot in the way that on certain situations, well, some people don't like it, some people like it, but they have changed the spawns. There is a feeling maybe that, well, people are going to say it's very different. I think in certain situations, the spawn traps can get very heavy. So, well, Parasite says, HyDra makes it better. It's easier to track players and less people randomly getting into spawn unless they work through a point or take a long route. Vault, I don't know, but B is easier to get. So there's a feeling that where the spawns are potentially can favour the attackers because they will spawn a long way out and have a difficult time getting back into the point. We'll see how that affects things. Of course, Thieves, by far the best control team right now. It could make them worse in the sense that it changes control. It could make them better in the sense that maybe teamwork's going to be even more impactful. Who knows? We'll see at what time suggest. Let's talk about the games. Surge played FaZe, and again, a very telling game today. If you played this series 100 times, Surge probably win most of the time, just because how often are FaZe going to Neslo, but how often are FaZe going to keep losing hardpoints? Seemingly an awful lot. Now, very interesting series this, right? Because Surge did not play their best stuff today. They, well, Neptune especially not happy with this performance, neither was Nastie. But again, it took FaZe to Neslo a team. And like, I can't really believe we're looking at this FaZe right now. I mean, obviously it was only a few days ago they came top 6 of the Major. And look, it's a big series win. It gets them off, started on the right track here, of course, this stage. And look, they're going to qualify for winners anyway. What really matters for them is improving on their weaknesses. And look, they have a lot of strengths still. They definitely have that going for them. But yeah, the hardpoint still continues to be a real struggle. And as good as aBeZy is in the other modes, I mean, he is just, like, a lot of the time in hardpoint. I mean, you can even watch it right here. I know that they're struggling to get in the point, but they're so staggered. Like, FaZe's setups and their breaks and their pushes are just honestly all over the place right now. But it is FaZe, right? Like, they will figure it out. It is, presumably anyway, a matter of when rather than if, even if it takes them a bit of time. Of course, it's not ideal that, like, they're obviously practicing every day, but the Major just ended. A week off for FaZe just to fully dial in probably might have helped them, but they've not got that, of course. And they come in today, again, their hardpoint was pretty bad, but their search and their control, impeccable, right, to say the very least. They dominated the rewind, wasn't even close, and then they dominated the Hacienda control. This was just, I mean, like, O4 and Nastie got absolutely blended this map. Simp did what Simp usually does in control. I mean, as we saw earlier today, Simp and aBeZy, their stage, or last stage, had like 70 rated cards, like mid-70s. And especially in control, Simp is just such a demon historically that, yeah, this was no surprise, really, going on a massive spree to win the game. And yeah, they joined the club of very few teams in history to have won a round with only 2 lives taken, which is exactly what they did here. So it's happened a few times in COD history. This was another one, but it's been a while since we've seen it, right? I mean, it used to happen, like the last time it's happened, Raid, Garrison, Checkmate. The other map here being Himmelmatt Expo, right? Which is the map from a couple of years ago in MW2. But yeah, Hacienda becomes another one to join the list. And actually, FaZe become the first team to have done that twice. So guess that was kind of interesting. But yeah, we go to a rewind hardpoint. The first time we'd seen that, of course, played, because it's now back in the map pool instead of protocol, which I think is probably a good change. And again, Surge just handled business. 250, 170 odds, not a great performance. Cellium, aBeZy again having a pretty rough time. Goes to a map 5, and then FaZe dominate the map 5, right? So, you know, it's such a strange series that FaZe are going this way. Look, FaZe are not necessarily new to this in the sense that a few years ago, I mean, even MW19, there was this run that FaZe went on of going Game 5 with absolutely everyone. Back then, of course, it was a different team. Simp, aBeZy, Cellium, Major Maniac, Priester. That was their team of 5 at the time. And it was, again, fascinating that for some reason they just went Game 5 every time. They would win the Game 5s usually, and then they would do well at the majors, right? Obviously, back then there weren't really majors. It was home series, so it was a little bit different. But we saw that an awful lot. And here we're kind of getting it with FaZe again, right? So look, they got the win. Neptune wasn't happy with the performance. Look, for Surge, for FaZe, it's okay, right? It's not the end of the world. These matches do matter to some degree, though, because Surge, they want to get the best seeding they can for the major and for champs. So you want to win, and of course, also FaZe have, like, not finally beaten Surge, because, of course, they beat them at the Grand Finals of Major 2, 4-0, but apart from that, FaZe lost every time. This was a nice one, at least, to get FaZe feeling good again, but, yeah, as Neptune says, I feel out of flow, which is kind of interesting, given they just came second at the Major a few days ago, so kind of confusing, but, look, Neptune, I think it's good mentality from Neptune on some regard, right, that he recognises, okay, I could be playing better than this. And if he does, then the team can get better. And of course, again, they were close to beating FaZe. Difficult to beat FaZe, you know, so many times, like 4 out of 5 times. Tough to beat FaZe in that way. As Simp says, as soon as you win hardpoints, you guys are screwed. So, you know, look, eventually they'll figure out their hardpoint. The question is, as and when they do, will their other game modes fall off? Because lately their other game modes have been strong, but at the major, their search wasn't as good either, and therefore they went out top 6. Had their search and control been this good in the major, then they would have made a deep run, I would say, even if their hardpoint was a bit shaky. And look, maybe it's a bit more than a bit shaky right now. Look, Surge are good. They deserve credit for sure, but you know, there's no denying that FaZe have a lot to think about in this series and in these particular matchups, right? Nastie, it's funny really, because Nastie will probably go to LAN and fry FaZe again. That's what he's been doing lately. But yeah, this series he has a real rough time here online at 0.7, Simp at 1.3, Masterclass, Takeover. Obviously the control was a pretty special one as well. And it was nice, I think, to see Rewind back in the map pool as well. Abuzah had a real good takeover game there. As to be fair, he did game 1. I mean, his hardpoint this year, at least over the last couple of months, has been nothing short of impeccable. But FaZe get the win. Surge's next games, they play OpTic, they play Boston, they play Toronto, they play Rocker. So they'll be pretty hopeful, Surge, that, yeah, they can get out of this bare minimum 3-2. They'll probably be thinking, and that'll be fine. But, you know, who knows, right? I said it was Surge after they came second the first time. You know, will they be able to do any better than this? I thought it was doubtful. They've now come second again. So, you know, it's difficult to deny that they couldn't go one step further, but you never know, right? Thieves, it feels like they're kind of peaking at the right time. FaZe are in a little bit of a slump right now, but assuming they get better and better again, maybe there's some other teams like Toronto that could improve as well. We'll discuss them in a couple of minutes because that was pretty interesting too. These are FaZe's games. They've got their 1-0 start, but they do play Thieves on Sunday, so that's pretty telling. Then it's Cloud9, then it's Gentleman's, then it's Falcons. So both of those teams we just mentioned should be fine. But let's talk about Ravens versus Toronto, because a very interesting series from a couple of different angles here. And, well, let's talk Toronto, I guess, first, because they start out strong. But again, yes, Beans has 2 minutes in Hill, but he is 7 in 19, right? So this was the big talking point of the day. Rex was the other big talking point of this game 1 because, I mean, what do you know? You put Rex against players that aren't literally Scrappy and HyDra all the time, and he's going to play better. So I think it was nice to see that Rex showing the promise that we expect of him. I mean, look, in challenges, Rex and Mercules were kind of like, I don't know, depending on who you ask, number 1, number 2. Certainly, if you thought Mercules was good in challenges, there was no reason to expect that Rex wouldn't be, based on the way that he was recently performing down there as well. So, look, we got to see some of that today, but Toronto still won the map, right? And that was the critical piece. Look, at the end of the day, Toronto won the series. I mean, this 1v3 from CleanX nearly helped them, but in the end it actually didn't matter because there was an insane 1v1 here, like actually bonkers. Beans finds himself in a 1 versus 1 with 10 on the clock. He thinks he can run away in time. Gwinn actually chases him down. I thought there was no way that Gwinn had this, actually. I couldn't believe my eyes because I'm not sure anyone necessarily made a terrible play. They just traded it out. Beans got this 1 kill here, 1 versus 1, runs away, thinks he can get away in time, nearly does, but he probably thinks he's done enough. But Gwinn gets on it with 0.2 on the clock, maybe 0.1 on the clock, I don't know. And they get the map win there. CleanX broke the kill record with 17 for the loss in the end. But again, after that, it was kind of business as usual. This round was pretty dominant in the end, where Toronto took down Ravens in the control, and then they went on to win the final map as well on the Hacienda. But the key talking points here really being Rex played pretty well, so did TJ. Slasher had a rough series. I know that he got plenty of hill time here, but I think Slasher lately over the last few, let's say, tournaments and series that he's played, not been great, right? Slasher at the start of the year was real impressive, I thought. Lately, not been quite so much. And, you know, with the questions around Attach, whether he might call it a day, Slasher and Attach are really the only two remaining proper OG players that have been around since Ghosts. So, you know, it's just a talking point. I don't think it's necessary. I think Slasher will compete as long as he can, and I think that he still can. But lately, with Ravens slumping a bit, he obviously recognises he's got to get back to form. But of course, the other big talking point was Beans, right? So, Beans is under some pressure, and maybe he's feeling some of that pressure, right? I wouldn't be surprised if he is, because right now, he didn't have a great series today. Bean says, look, we won 3-1, it's okay. But as Adam Adamu says, of course, co-founder, CEO over there, you know, you were miraculous, right? So maybe there's a little bit of a Merc kind of, you know, pun going on. That seems to be his intention, of course. Slasher was frustrated with his performance, right? But we've got to talk about it, right? Because Beans ended the series with a 0.7. So, look, it's just an observation, right? Because Toronto, like, I thought sticking with Beans is the right call, but Mercules is still out there, still available. They could go and get him if they wanted to. They obviously felt like keeping Beans was the right idea, and I think that maybe for now it probably is. But if you're Toronto and you could go to Beans or you go to Merc and say, hey, do you want to join our bench for some money? Merc might tell you yes, he might tell you no, because he might want to keep options open without needing to go through buyouts or whatever from another team, especially if he doesn't think that he's going to get the chance. But I think Toronto would be unwise not to try and at least get Mercules signed up to their bench so that even when the World Cup or the World Championship comes along, even if roster lockers happens, they've got the opportunity to potentially make a change here, right? Because, look, if Beans has just got to think about this, he didn't have the greatest stage last stage compared to normal, and he started out today with a 0.7 against a very beatable team. So, look, it's a win. A win is a win, but Mercules, I'm sure, will have been watching on. The final series was, I thought, going to go this way, and it did go this way, but the manner in which it went this way is fascinating in the sense that OpTic have been getting lots of criticism over the last few days. We're not making a change. Cloud9 have made a change. Falcons, you know, look, they didn't make a change. They weren't getting criticism for not making a change, really. And I think people thought, okay, they could go get Mercules. I understand the lack of criticism for them because Champs is chalked anyway, so it doesn't really matter. Save your money for the off-season, might be the argument. But also, there is the World Cup coming up, right? And Falcons will win the World Cup World Championship, right? Vegas Falcons will not win it, but, you know, Falcons as an organisation will likely win the overall championship because they enter everything and have great teams in most events. So that's what happened last year anyway. So this year, the Falcons are going to turn up to Riyadh and want to be competitive, right? Especially because they've blown up the Saudi thing. The point was to blow up the Saudi thing to make the team more competitive. And is it more competitive? Yeah, but yeah, with a bit of an asterisk. So, game one, this is the Falcons' bread and butter. It's hardpoint. They sometimes win it. They were pretty good at it last stage. But it's the brand new Cloud9 team. They bring in Cap, they bring in Spart, and they did pretty well. I mean, Spart had a great map one, so did Cap still. Like, look, this team, they're going to play at more pace. I think, as I said earlier today, I like this Cloud9 team better than the previous one. They can now start to just try and use their talent on the map. But again, game one, right? Arcetes, Pred, Priester having a tough time. I mean, Pred had 9 seconds in hill. I thought was actually kind of impressive, as you guys can see on the right-hand side. Again, as crazy as it is with 3 world champions, this team is kind of, please help Xnid, right? Someone please help this guy. Like, that is honestly how it feels at times. So, yeah, I'm confused where they go from here, if anywhere, because they're certainly not going to champs. And, well, Cloud9 end up winning the Search and Destroy as well. This wasn't close. I mean, this to me is criminal, really. Like, Cloud9 have just fired their search coach. Nothing against Tupac. But my point is, Falcons, their search has been miserable now for weeks. This Falcon, or this Cloud9 team, literally formed a couple of days ago. So typically, Search and Destroy is what is a struggle, right? Because teams, they can just kind of honeymoon period it in hardpoint, but in Search, you actually need strats and knowing what their teammates are doing. Falcons have had a week to prepare their Search. They know it's bad, and yet they get slammed anyway. So that was just bad, like real bad. And then it got to such a point that Simp was taking Pred hostage. I mean, look at this, like absolute pure premium disrespect. Simp comes up behind his old boy Pred and, you know, takes him hostage, just takes him for a ride around the top of the map here. Like absolute scenes. Even Kremp's hiding in the corner, waiting for him to get the trade. Like unbelievable scenes. So, yeah, that, I mean, actually the execution as well he did was even more demoralizing. So in the end, Falcons get absolutely slammed 3-0, not even really close. Cloud9, they deserve some credit, right? They have locked in. They turned it around, at least so far. Unfortunately for Cloud9, their upcoming run is tough. They play FaZe, Thieves, Toronto, Miami. Those are their upcoming 4 games in some order or another. That is a challenge, but they've started in the best possible way to try and make it to the winner's bracket. Exnid did have like a really bad map 3 that affected his numbers, so it's not just like, you know, Exnid and Fred's totally, like obviously in the final map, Pred went 39-31, but still, like the overall overarching factor kind of remains true that the team, you know, was brought in to deliver some numbers around Exnid, especially on the AR side. It's just not really happened, right? I mean, again, Arcity's Priest, like Arcity's especially, like what did he really do, right? Like 48 and 58. Like, okay, I know that his damage was actually more than Priester, but in terms of engagements, it's not really going to cut it when you've got Spark going 64 and 56 for 120 engagements, and Arcetes is sitting here with, what, 106, right? Like, it's not ideal, is it, really? Falcons are not technically eliminated from the champs race until tomorrow, but almost certainly they will be in 24 hours' time. So very much interested in your thoughts in the comments. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.